through a week off.
2 weeks, some of us.
Yes, you've had a few weeks off, Gary.
I had. I must admit, I thoroughly enjoyed listening to the TDL mobile reunion. That was great fun.
Yeah, it was good fun. I really enjoyed that, yeah.
Yeah, it was good fun. It was good to meet up with the guys again, so hopefully we can do it again sometime in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good fun. So, what we had since then, we've had a Surface announcement, and we can get your thoughts on that. We've had an Apple announcement and a few technology updates and app updates and things like that. So we've had a busy couple of weeks, really. So let's start off with Gary, getting your thoughts then on the Surface announcement. And the first part of it, what do you think? Were you surprised that there was no Surface Mini announced?
Yeah, I was. Well, I was probably up until the day beforehand. I would have been surprised, but then I heard some rumours and there's fairly strong rumours that it wasn't going to be in there. Had been due to be, is what I'm hearing. So very, very last minute withdrawal from the presentation. So that's quite interesting, and makes you wonder why. So yeah, but no, I mean, Surface 3 Pro. It's an ultrabook. It's pretty good though. I must admit. I actually met someone using one yesterday and was rather impressed with it. So a lot thinner than the Surface Pro 2. Not much bigger than, smaller than my MacBook Air. Sorry. And very, very powerful. I'm not totally convinced by the Surface form factor for a laptop though, which it really is.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Surface 2 as a laptop, but I think with it being that bit bigger, I think it could be a bit bulky.
Yeah, I think the problem is, the problem I can see is because the whole Surface thing is very top heavy anyway. The tablet bit has always been heavier than the keyboard, and that makes it really difficult to balance on your lap. It's great on the tabletop. Don't get me wrong; it's really good if you put it on a cafe tabletop or something like that, or on a table on an aircraft. Although it's a bit big for most aircraft tables. But it's going to work fine. But it's actually balanced on your lap, I think. I mean, okay, the fact that you've got that continuously adjustable stand does make a difference, and helps a bit. But I still feel it's not. I almost would like to see some. I mean, I suppose you could use the dock, and it's quite a nice dock on it. But having said that, the keyboard's great. I'm really, really impressed with the keyboard. Having played with it yesterday, screen fabulous, performance amazing. But this was the was the i7 version. Really, really good. Bits suspect on the battery life at the moment. The guy I was talking to was only getting 6 hours out of it. But that might be just getting. I know Microsoft have mentioned there's a patch due to come out, so maybe that'll help.
Yeah, it seems to be quite a few people with the Surface 3 devices saying that there is a known issue with them with the power management, which will be fixed by the time it comes out.
Yeah. So obviously it's all pre-release at the moment, so I can't say where I saw one, and I can't say who I was talking to. I can see one. But yeah, no, it looked. I was impressed. I have to say. I mean, if I was in the market for a replacement ultrabook, I probably would get one. But I do like the Surface Pro 2 form factor, and I do use it in tablet mode quite a lot. And the fact it's something you can just carry and use, which is great. I just do feel that I almost want some sort of hinge or mechanism you could have almost as an add-on to it to hold it in place when it's on your lap. But that's quite good. But,
I think from looking at the price, I mean, like if I was in the market for a new notebook to do some development on and I wanted a bigger device, then yeah, I would consider one, but I probably wouldn't purchase one to replace, say, something like the Surface 2 the way I use it, which, as we talked about in the past, is mainly for browsing and blogging, and you just don't need that power and versatility, really. You can quite happily get away with this cheaper Surface 2.
Yeah, and I tend to carry my Surface Pro 2 around when I wouldn't want to carry a laptop around.
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference from my point of view. I mean, okay, I mean it's nice that it's way less than the Surface Pro 2, and I hope they actually come up with a Surface Pro 2 too at some point, which has the same benefits somehow. Certainly with the new chipsets that Intel are about to bring out, that ought to be feasible. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly good. The price point's good as well. I mean, that base model at 639 is definitely up there with the competitive competition. Although obviously it's only an i3. But
there was something that they said that made me suspect that Surface Pro 2 is actually going to be phased out. I can't remember the exact comment it was, but I think it was Panos Panay himself actually said. And like I said, I can't remember word for word what he said, but it was certainly something like, you can still get the Surface Pro 2 while it's available.
Yeah. I wouldn't expect the current model Pro 2 to last much longer.
It certainly had a big price reduction over the last week.
Yes.
That's it.
John Lewis and the Microsoft Store are both knocked anywhere between 140, 150 pounds off each of the models.
Right.
So it's become quite attractive in that respect.
Yeah, especially if you get like you mentioned with the original Surface Pro, you get the power keyboard and you've got decent battery life there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. All right, like I said, I really like the look of the Surface 3. It's not a device I need, and it's going to be interesting to see what comes next. I think that'll probably the most significant thing, if there is another RT device, or whether we really have seen the end of RT and the next device will be a hybrid OS, something mixed with Windows Phone. That'll point the direction that Microsoft are going.
And I think it's also interesting because there's been a whole raft of chip announcements from Intel this week, and their latest range of the Core, I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but basically the Core M, that's it, the Core M chips they've just released. They're going to be thinner and less power hungry and cooler. So they bode well for a small tablet design.
Yeah,
and even faster than not your grandfather's atoms.
Yeah, because I think while I was away, didn't Toshiba announce it on Core 2?
Yes.
And listeners will know I'm quite a big fan of the Encore, so I think the Encore 2 is going to be even cheaper, isn't it?
That's what they're saying, which seems amazing since it's got a better spec.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the way things go though in the industry, isn't it? Things do get cheap. I mean, also I think obviously they may be taking advantage of the fact that they don't have to pay a license fee to Microsoft anymore.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what it was. I only read it while I was away, so I can't remember the exact spec. But I'm thinking it was 199 or less.
Yeah. So I mean, it's basically coming in at the price it's discounted to at the moment.
Right.
So which is good.
Yeah.
I mean, just coming in at that starting point, that means it will probably get discounted going further forward. I thought one thing I did think was quite interesting this week was the fact that the latest market stats came out, and more Surface devices were sold this year than Nexus devices were sold in the UK.
Yeah. And I guess
and also that 58% of Surfaces sold with the RT device.
Yeah.
I think it was 23% of tablets were Microsoft Surfaces, and 58% of those were Surface RT devices, which is quite interesting because I bet it doesn't include returns.
Is that because of the price point of the Surface RT, or is that mainly Surface 2s? Do you think?
It didn't really say. It just mentioned that it was of the Windows RT devices for ARM-based chipsets. So it didn't really break it down in that way. But yeah, I'm sure with the sale on the original Surface RT probably had some help along the way.
That's I think a lot of people perhaps have got them like I got them for my kids because they're the cheapest, the most versatile sort of combination. The best. I think they're a good value for if you've got a limited usage that you can have on it. And my kids took their Surface on a holiday with them, and they were watching them on the plane, and they're a great device for that.
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, I was kind of tempted by a Surface Pro 2 as my next work device, and I would definitely be interested in the Surface Pro 3. But it does seem to be that Microsoft have convinced themselves that it does work on a lap, and I've seen a number of people saying that you need kind of really long upper thighs to be able to use it on your lap.
Yeah, and that's how I use my Surface 2. I use it like that most of the time, whereas my desktop, my laptop I use at work, is on a desk. So maybe that's just the different scenarios that you'd use them.
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, like I said, that would be the big question mark for me because occasionally I'll sit in the lounge and work, and so if it's not usable on the lap, that would be a really big consideration, albeit it's an infrequent usage scenario. But and the other thing I thought was strange. I've been giving this some thought while you were away. That they said that 90% of people that own a laptop also own an iPad. And I think in some ways Microsoft are kind of not being completely honest with themselves because yes, the Surface Pro 3 can be a tablet if you want it to be, but the reason why people own an iPad Mini or even potentially a Surface Mini is because while a 12-inch PC can act as a tablet, if you just relaxing on the couch watching telly, you don't want that massive device. I really do think no matter what they do, a Surface laptop convertible, people are always going to carry around, or those that can afford it are always going to carry around a second device. And I think in some ways they're trying to solve a problem that doesn't need to be solved.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I took my Surface and my iPad Mini, and I was reading the Kindle app, and the iPad Mini is a natural device to use on that, and certainly the bigger Surface 3, there was no you wouldn't start reading the ebook sat in waiting to get on a plane, would you? Or you were sat at a train or something like that, or with a big 13-inch tablet reading a Kindle. It doesn't seem right, but on an 8-inch device, and that's where I think you were spot on. Microsoft are missing the point slightly, and a Surface Mini that accompanies this, perhaps, that links, maybe even, well, everything links together already, doesn't it? With OneDrive and your email and your share and your Microsoft account and everything else. So they do work very well together. So having the two devices isn't an issue, and I think you're right. People will still buy a Surface 3 and potentially an iPad Mini or an Encore 2 or an Nexus 7.
Because I think I think if I had a Surface Pro 3 and I was maybe traveling for business, then yes, maybe I would think twice about taking two devices because the minimal time I'll need a tablet device, it would suffice. But for usage at home and just kind of casual, I'm nipping out somewhere and I want to take a tablet with me, I wouldn't want, the Surface Pro 3 wouldn't be my tablet of choice.
Interestingly, the guy I was talking to yesterday was saying with the way the stand folds back so that you can actually have the tablet almost propped up so it's like at 25 degrees. I think that's about right. Right. So it's almost flat, but it's not quite. That props on a table or on a train table or an aircraft table is a really good experience for just using touch on. And being that a bit bigger, you've got bigger touch areas, which when you're in a vibrating area. So that's actually one thing I think what people forget with tablets and small tablets is if you're in for example, a train, it's going over the points, it's vibrating, it's actually really difficult to touch small touch targets. And a bigger screen actually makes that slightly easier. So in some ways, it's actually quite a good consumption device for that sort of environment, especially for video. I mean, the size of the video is going to mean you can have it further away from you. It's more comfortable. So I can certainly see some benefit of that. It won't quite fit in the newly announced pockets that they're fitting to some aircraft. I think I've seen. I've done that.
I saw that. I can't.
It's one of the Monarch. That's it. Monarch Airlines have removed all their in-flight entertainment and replaced them with pockets on the back of the seats. On some of the new planes, where you can actually put an iPad in.
Yeah.
And it was just a little bit too big for that, which is a shame. But,
so that's the good thing about the Surface 2. I actually used my Surface 2 when I was on the plane, and as I've done fairly often when I fly, and even the smallest Ryanair flight, where you've got no leg room at all, still the Surface 2 is pretty good for getting fitting on the small table, and the Surface 2 is a good device. I'm not sure whether the 3 would be that little bit too big, but then I know it's not a lot bigger, but still.
Yeah, it was actually smaller than I thought it was going to be. That's weird, actually. It looks smaller than an 11-inch MacBook Air, which is weird because it is bigger. But it's just the way the bezel works, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think you're right. The bezel and the kickstand as well probably helps. But I still agree with Jason. You're going to, in a rare occasion, maybe you'd only need one. But if you want to sit on the sofa and just browse something, or you just want to sit in the garden and read an ebook. A small device is better for that.
Yeah, and as I said, I still don't think it's a very good laptop. I think they could actually quite easily come up with an accessory which would make it to a proper laptop and still have the benefit of the fold-over case. I was trying to work out how you do it the other day, but I'm sure you could come up with some sort of hinge you could just clip on the side to hold the keyboard in place.
A little locking bracket, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
There's the accessory market there. I suppose what maybe Microsoft's point is that they don't need to produce an 8-inch tablet because Toshiba, Dell, and others are all producing fairly decent devices. I mean, they're not the highest quality, but then that price point for the 8-inch tablets aren't meant to be. But it's still a shame. I still would have liked to have seen a 4x3 8-inch Surface that looks, that's very much like the iPad Mini form factor. I think that would have been a really nice device.
Yeah, I still think we will probably eventually see it. But I know there were some technical difficulties. So what they were, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. So, and sort of talking about those 8-inch tablets, I think something else announced while I was away is that there's a sort of a new SKU of Windows, isn't there, with
Windows with Bing.
So what's all that about?
So Windows with Bing is basically a free version of Windows for low-end devices. I don't know if it's the same free version as they're doing for the sub 10-inch, sub 8-inch screen sizes, but I think it's actually more aimed at the netbook market.
Right.
And so basically it's subsidised by having Bing products built into it, and advertising.
I guess you'll have the Bing search as default and all that stuff.
Yeah, but then again, so does Apple now.
Yeah, it does. We'll talk more of that later. Yeah. So this is actually I was scratching my head seeing what the point of this was, but you're right. The 8-inch tablets like the Encore get the free version of Windows, but a 10-inch netbook wouldn't qualify at the moment.
Yeah.
And then this is the way to do that. I suppose you could have a 17-inch, cheapest chips, but with maybe not the 17-inch, but 15-inch ones that are, a couple of £100 with this. Maybe that would be not the best experience, but it's certainly a way of getting Windows onto low-cost devices.
Yeah, and I think this is compared against the Chromebooks.
Yeah, and I guess then also with the hardware requirements of 8.1 being slightly lower in terms of the disk size as well, then I suppose that's how it all fits together. You could see some really cheap clamshell, what look like traditional clamshell notebooks, but really cheap because they've got 16 gig SSD or whatever in them. Windows 8.1 with Bing, and someone walks into PC World and they think they're going to be getting a bargain.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's interesting actually is, we were going about the iPad and everything. I was listening to one of the finance calls about Apple a couple of weeks back, and they were saying that the iPad has not been the success they thought it was going to be, and actually quite disappointed with iPad sales.
Yeah, and I guess that's partly because nearly everyone's got one now.
Yeah, and unlike the iPhone, they're not getting repeat business. People aren't buying newer models.
Yeah, I think the iPhone they definitely got there first, didn't they? And I guess they did to an extent with the iPad, but I think part of the issue is that many people can you can get an iPhone subsidised, whereas a tablet you're generally paying the full price for it. So when people are shopping around, they're going to go for something that's kind of affordable and essentially kind of does the same thing. I think the iPhone was quite unique in its interface, but whereas the iPad was unique in what it did, but it wasn't necessarily, by then Android did kind of exist and people were familiar with it.
Yeah, of all the devices I've got, I think the iPad Mini is one of the favourite, and it certainly, when you compare it with the Encore, I know it's not a direct comparison. It's slightly more expensive, but it is a really nice device. It's thinner, lighter. It's got a high-res screen, and iOS does the job, pretty well. And if I have to pick up a tablet, like I said, when I was going on holiday to read ebooks on, or maybe watch a few videos on, I would always pick up the iPad, but it is more expensive than, especially the Android tablets, like the Huddle and those kind of things.
Yeah, especially something like the Huddle, which is quite a device for the money. So, and I mean, it's interesting. I have done. I don't think I've actually spoken to you since I was out in Poland a couple of weeks back. But I noticed out there, obviously, all the offshore Samsungs and things like that were still pretty expensive, but they had their own local maker tablet about €20 equivalent. So, I mean, that's crazy. Who's going to pick up anything at 200 if you get one for 20, which is cool. I think it was a dual core. It was 4.3 Android, so it was pretty good spec, really. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't going to go up with the quad cores, but it was still fast enough to do what you wanted to do. So, I mean, that's ridiculous sort of prices.
Yeah, this kind of the low end certainly has been Android has kind of taken over, and I think that's probably where the Windows with Bing and low SSD storage and all that. That's where Microsoft are aiming at, aren't they?
Yeah.
So let's mention. So this today was the Apple keynote. Now I was going to do a blog post on this, but I kind of thought, well, I think it's been done to death by everybody now. So there's not a lot to write about it because I think everybody was doing posts about it as it was going out. But let's talk about that. So what were the anybody first of all, Jason? I presume you didn't see it.
I didn't, but I have been kind of trying to keep up with the news that's been going around.
I don't know, Gary, you saw it.
I didn't this time. I've been busy on various Microsoft things.
Well, I
keep me awake. Keep me awake.
I thought there were some very significant announcements from what I've seen. You know, it's you know, some of the stuff around kind of cloud storage and you know, those kind of things. It's where Apple has really kind of fallen behind. So, but I'll let Ian cover most of the news.
Well, I think the three main areas were OS X, a new version of OS X 10, 10.10, Yosemite, yeah. I always think it's a cartoon character, isn't it? Yosemite Sam. Which has got quite a visual overhaul and a sort of iOS-like simplification, perhaps, and flattening.
Ivorian flattening.
Yeah.
So John I've been the new chief designer for the OS as well as the actual hardware these days.
So from the visual, it's the usual thing that Apple does, which they do well, is an incremental update. So you're not going to get the shock from going from Windows 7 to Windows 8 when you buy an Apple product. You're going to get an incremental update. So it does look more modern, and the sort of the dock looks better, and the menu bars, the title bars sort of blend with the screen. But I think for me the biggest change up the whole set of features, which included in a better email client and better calendar and things like that, which to be honest, I very rarely use them. Like I only ever really use the browser and sort of some of the tools. But is this notion that you can the integration with the iOS devices, which I thought was pretty impressive. So, James, I don't know if you saw any of that.
Yeah, I saw that. For example, if you've got an iPhone hooked up to your MacBook, you can actually make calls and various other communications straight from the MacBook. So, kind of bringing those devices working close together. I guess trying to more and more encourage people to buy into the ecosystem as a whole. Yeah,
and I think that was quite nice. So the scenario was if you get an incoming call, you can take it on your MacBook, even though it's it's not a Skype call or any kind of voice over IP kind of stuff. It's a normal phone call, but you've got them connected together, and you can take that call, which I think was pretty good. And you can make calls as well from the iOS device, which was pretty good. Text messaging was linked as well. Using iCloud to sort of synchronize things together, and that's something that perhaps on Android and on Windows Phone you currently don't do. I mean, for a while I felt that sort of iOS and Mavericks was kind of a bit behind on all of Windows and Android features, but this is something that the other OEMs aren't really doing at the moment. So I think that was quite nice, and they also showed up how you can use the access point, use your phone as an access point that was very simple to set up as well. So I think they've made that integration quite nice. I mean, how often you want to take a phone call and speak the speakerphone on your laptop. I don't know, it's probably questionable, but certainly iMessages or normal text messages, not just iMessages. I think that could be quite handy if your phone's on the other side of the room.
Yeah, I think messaging is probably one area they have picked up. So that whole process is called something called handoff, and it's doesn't just work with messaging and things like that. Obviously, that's the first point they've actually implemented it on, but there'll be other things you can pass from your iPhone to your Mac. For example, I think they're using the Mac word processor and spreadsheet, which always pages, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'll be able to hand off that from work on the iPad to work on your Mac and things like that. So I think it's certainly a good feature. And to be honest, one that Microsoft have almost implemented already, and especially I suspect we'll get very close to with the next issues of phones.
Yeah, I think those are nice features, and I think those are kind of thing that doesn't make a difference in, like I said, calendar and all these other things. Don't make as much as well. That is a nice one, and I imagine that we'll see Microsoft and Android looking at those features as well. But Microsoft are probably in a quite good position to do it because they're already tied together quite well, and like you said.
Mm-hmm.
The other things, something that Jason mentioned, Bing is there.
Yeah, Bing has taken over. I was thinking about that today, Dave. If you talked about that 2-3 years ago, Apple actually adopting, and not only adopting a Microsoft technology, going on about it in great detail in their keynote.
Yeah.
Mention it in millions, well, not millions, but quite a few times, more than most other Apple products mentioned. Just wouldn't have believed it, and it really shows that I think that Microsoft is starting to do something right in their marketing. To the fact that they've obviously gone back to the days when they worked quite closely with Apple, because obviously in the early days when Office was coming out, they really wanted to get onto the Apple platform. And I think this move away from Windows being be all and end all may actually be very, very beneficial. I did read a really interesting article the other day. I apologise because I can't remember who actually wrote it, which was speculating on the idea of an Apple-Microsoft merger. And actually, realistically, that there are some things you could see there. If Microsoft was to go pure services and forget about its devices, which I don't want to happen. I love the Windows Phone and all that sort of stuff. But if they were, there is a lot of synergy between the two companies.
I thought it was interesting that the iCloud, they mentioned Macs and iPads and PCs, but Android was just nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely Android is the common. Well, actually.
Enemy.
Yeah, I was going to say it's common enemy, but when you look perhaps at Microsoft's current strategy, Android is almost embraced as well. So it seems to be you've got Google on one side with Android, you've got Apple with their own ecosystem, and you've got Microsoft with their own ecosystem, but now really pushing cross-platform stuff. And are they the only one of those sort of big three that really going betting big on cross-platform?
It does appear that way. I mean, they're certainly starting to pick up a lot of cross-platform stuff.
I mean, I know that Google, have all their services available on iOS as well, and shun Windows Phone and Windows. But if you were, and this is again something that when we started doing this show just 5 or 6 years ago, we probably wouldn't have been surprised when we hear ourselves saying it. But if you're looking at a service or a provider that gives you access to all your things on all your devices, then Microsoft are a pretty good bet. You've got OneNote and OneDrive and Outlook.com more than Google, who traditionally the way. So that is quite a surprise, quite a change in the last few years.
Yeah, it certainly is. I'm not. I think this one
Hello. 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 Hello.
Hello.
Hey, I got you back. Swear. Try and get Gary back.
Need to get that fibre connection installed.
17th.
I'm not talking to you. I'm gonna sulk.
40 meg.
Nice.
Let's not bringing Gary back on.
He was online. I think he chatted.
Yeah, I'm sure it's this end.
Lingering around.
Try again. Yeah, my internet's just getting worse and worse.
I think if they're doing a lot of work on the line, then.
Yeah, it has affected it, definitely. I've lost sort of I don't have a solid connection anymore. So it's definitely gone downhill.
Yeah, I mean our exchange is being upgraded, but it's only a village near us that's actually getting the cabinets upgraded, and we've had our internet connection come and go all the time.
It's trying to. You can't get Gary back.
He's sulking.
Let's try it again.
Can you open up a...
It's not. It's just not dialing. Well, it's dialing. Oh, it's sending a message. They probably try it and do it now. Oh, it says he's on, but he can't hear us.
Do you want to drop the call in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello. Anybody there?
Hello. Come in, Gary.
Hello, Gary. Oh, he's just resetting his video.
Starting beeping, going to try resetting it.
Okay, we'll crack on wise. So we were just talking about sort of the cross-platform stuff, but what else have we got from Apple? I'll only ask Gary about the code stuff, so we'll come back to him on that one. So there was a lot of Mac stuff, but those are the main things for me. On the iOS side, have you seen any of the highlights from that?
No, the only one I've really seen is the changes to the notification center where they're going to allow widgets, and also the fact that they're going to allow apps to actually talk to each other for the first time, which is really, I guess, a big step change for Apple.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is the first time that sort of devices will be able, or apps will be able to talk to each other, so you can take advantage of functionality from one with another, which when you use Android, this is something you can do all the time. Yeah, so
yeah, in particular where Windows Phone was designed.
yeah,
That's how Windows Phone was designed for, originally with the contracts and everything. So, and obviously Windows 8 as well.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I think that was quite interesting. Then to have the sort of the linking of the apps together. And they had a good example with a photo, how you could sort of go into a photo and use another photo editing service and sort of bring that back in. So I think that was pretty good. What else was? Oh, keyboard. You can have a swipe keyboard.
Yes. So yes, I did see that. I think it's interesting. It does seem to be that Apple are becoming the follower almost. They used to be the innovator, but a lot of the things that I've seen them adding is really just a kind of catching up almost.
Yeah, I mean that's a feature that Windows has gained recently. Android's had for some time. In fact, you can not just the swipe keyboard, but you can have virtually any keyboard, can't you? You can have third-party keyboards.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's not something you can do on Windows Phone, though, is it?
You can't have third-party keyboards, but you have got, obviously they've got the what do they call it, the word shape writing, I think they call it.
I like the keyboard, I must admit, on Windows Phone, but this is really bringing that extra stuff in. So yeah, I think that's quite a nice feature to be able to bring that. I do find the keyboard a bit frustrating on when I use my iPad now because I'm so used to how it works on Windows Phone. In fact, I really want it on the Surface. It would be nice to have that sort of fast typing on the Surface with the swipe. So we could try and get Gary back. He says, "Can you hear me?" And no, we can't.
Oh, I thought I heard him then.
I can't hear him.
No.
He's there. The call's on, but he's just not. We can't hear him. She's not good because we want to talk about some of the developer stuff there. What else have we got? Oh, you've got spotlighting, improved spotlight. So that looked pretty good. That sort of pulls in Wikipedia entries and news and things like that. Very much how Windows search works.
Sorry, what was that?
The new spotlight that sort of brings a search into one place.
Oh yes.
Which I thought was sort of very much how the Windows search works.
Yeah, which I must admit, I'd always thought iOS had that already, but obviously not.
It searches through your apps, your contacts. There's a range of things, but doesn't include Wikipedia and Bing like that does.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Now, one thing that might be interesting for you, actually, I know you've got kids with a few Apple devices. It's the family sharing. Did you see that?
Yeah, that's where you can have like a family calendar. I guess maybe a equivalent of like the rooms on Windows Phone, where you can share calendars. But I thought also what I quite liked was the fact that if they wanted to purchase an app, it could actually prompt you on your device.
Yeah. Now
you authorise the purchase.
Yeah. Now this is pretty good. So this is, you can, like you said, you can do that authorization. So if someone wants to purchase something, it pops on your device to say, do you want to approve it, which I think is quite good. My kids used to just have to bring the iPad up and say, put your password in.
Yes, yeah, that's what mine have to do.
Yeah. On Windows Phone, I found it's a bit confusing. The family settings are actually pretty good, but it does lock out certain things. Like my son couldn't purchase a song because his account wouldn't let him because of his age category. But although he can purchase an app, which I thought was a bit strange. So he's got some credit because I think from when he bought his Nokia, he got some credit. So he can spend it on apps, but he can't spend it on music, which seems a bit strange. Really, it should be, I should be able to tick it because on his account you can tick whether you can buy apps, buy in-app purchases, buy free apps, that kind of thing. But you can't do that for music. So I think that's just a feature that's missing. But anyway, like you said, with Apple, it does do that. But it also shares music and movies, contents, books, whatever. So if you buy an album, you can then share that with another account if they've got the same credit card.
Right, that's good.
Yeah, so in your case, you may have all your devices, say, running on the same credit card. So if you which would be the way you would probably do it, and then you buy a book, you can pass that on to your wife, or you can get kids or whatever, or even with apps as well. So I think it was 6 family members on the same credit card can do it.
Yeah, I mean, the one frustrating thing I do find with Apple is that, like you say, on Windows Phone, your kids can have their own accounts, and the whole system is set up, particularly with the Xbox. But I tried to set up my son, and it's like a minimum age. I think it's 12 or 13 before you can have an Apple ID.
Yes, I think you're right. I think I ended up putting my ID on there and just using my
yeah, which is kind of frustrating, really. Like I say, with Microsoft kind of set up the gear towards kids, and I guess that comes from the Xbox ecosystem. But
yeah,
I would like to see a younger age limit on the Apple ID.
But this family setting may well work quite well for you then.
Yes, yeah, it's certainly something that I'd be interested in.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the cloud storage then. So this is Apple's sort of alternative to OneDrive or Google Drive even.
Yeah, and it's certainly the one area I think I can't remember, it might have been Ed Bott was talking not long ago about how they kind of they've got key elements missing from their service, and one of the big ones was cloud storage with files being shared across devices, and being able to edit on one and then pick up your changes on another. So like I say, I think it's been quite a few interesting announcements, because it does feel like they're kind of adding clearly they're going after Dropbox, and I guess to a certain extent OneDrive, but then if I haven't got devices available on Android, then I'm not quite sure how they win that battle.
Yeah. Oh,
another way.
He's back.
He's back.
Talk about MacBooks. Mine threw a wobbly there. Some problems. I rebooted it, and I can talk to you again.
That's good.
As for this, so you're using an Apple device to chat on the show.
Yeah, that's what it is. And so, interestingly, on the talk about the cloud stuff, it's what I find quite interesting is that Apple actually had a head start on that. They were the first of the big three to actually come up with a cloud. Their iCloud stuff was actually there before even Azure.
Yes.
So they really sort of let it slip there. So it shows you how easy it is to take your eye off the ball and let things get past. I mean, it happened to Microsoft. It potentially could happen to Apple.
Yeah, and I know obviously big news, I think it was last week, where they bought Beats for the music streaming service, which in some ways, we wonder why they couldn't just bolt it onto the existing iTunes service. But I think one thing they're interested in was the kind of human curation of playlists.
Yeah, and I also think that the branding is quite key for them in the States.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is shocking how many people walk around with Beats headphones on.
Yeah, and the big old things as well, aren't they?
Yeah, but it's the same sort of branding as what people used to buy white headphones to look like they had an iPhone. There's nothing actually. Well, I've got a very strong opinion about Beats headphones and how they perform compared to others. But having seen how they're built internally as well, I think that it's definitely style over substance.
Yes.
But sometimes you need to buy that style. Just if you want to hit a target audience, and they were definitely beginning to lose out in that target audience. I mean, I've just said this before, but I remember I was in a group, a training group of young students, and just someone had an iPhone, and they turned around to them and said, "Well, you got one of those? It's a granddad's phone." So I think Apple have got to recapture that market if they're going to get in there.
Yeah. And just trying to think some of the other things you mentioned. There's like a health app, isn't there, where other apps can store data.
Yeah. Have you mentioned the home app yet?
No, that was the next thing.
So they've got the home service, which I'm not sure about at the moment. It's as Joseph was saying about that's not going to work on Android, so it's going to be iPhone and iPad only. So if you're going to buy your home automation system, that's standard. It's only certified devices, so people have actually got to sign up to be on Apple standard. It doesn't, at the moment, work with other standards. So people, we've obviously spoken to quite a few home automation things over the recent weeks, and none of those would actually work with this standard at the moment. Although they are talking to people like Philips Hue and that to get them on the standard. So I think there needs to be my fear on the whole home automation side of things at the moment is it's going very proprietary, and this is just another proprietary one. Although it being the controller proprietary rather than the actual devices. But having said that, the way it actually operates and the way it works looks really good. So it's as you expect from Apple. They've come up with a really slick user interface, and the way things are actually hooked together look really cool.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see some of the examples of that. And just briefly, as a quick tangent, then, did you, while we were away, or maybe just before you and Gary, the Insteon have got some apps for Windows Phone and Windows 8.
Yeah, they have. I've heard a couple of people saying that the Windows 8 one isn't particularly good, but the Windows Phone one is actually quite good. And that's great. I mean, Insteon's one of the big up-and-coming players in home automation. Very big in the States. It's just moved into the UK as well. So definitely one of the good ones to see.
Yeah.
Coming up there.
Okay, let's just briefly on the Apple then. Just got a new development tool.
Yes.
Now this will be one for you. So does this have an impact on development for mobile apps?
Oh, it certainly does. I mean, it's. I must admit, this has caught me a bit by surprise, and there's not much on the development side does, but I really haven't had much chance to look up and see what it actually is doing. It does seem to be a high level way of doing design and build, and the idea is it's supposed to make development easier.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it. It looked very well. It doesn't look like any other language, but you can kind of see some of the almost like script-like. Yeah,
it's scripted. I mean, it's definitely. I guess it's because a lot of people don't like Objective-C. I mean, I've actually got to quite like it recently. I still want to program in it all the time, but I can see the point behind it. But a lot of people come from other platforms do struggle with Objective-C, so maybe that's why they've come up with something else. But I'm going to have to look a bit more into it, because it is definitely something which I wasn't expecting. To be honest, I'm in terms of development stuff, I'm far more excited about what Xamarin announced last week.
Oh, that was version 2, was it?
Version 3.
Version 3. Right.
So the key thing in there is this whole idea of Xamarin Forms, which are XAML-based form design language. Unfortunately, not compatible with Windows Phone XAML or Windows Universal XAML, but close. And you can actually basically design your forms once and run them across all the platforms, but it converts them to the native controls. So if you have a tab bar, so for example, if you use the Xamarin Forms tab bar, you get a pivot in Windows Phone 8, you get a tab in Android, you get pages on iOS.
Yeah, that's a good neat idea.
It's very powerful. Really like that a lot.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm going to have a look. I'm going to give that a try. I think that looks an interesting idea. To be able to write once and get it onto many platforms is kind of the holy grail at the moment.
Yeah.
Was there anything else on? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just a slight bit of breaking news from Mary Jo Foley's All About Microsoft site. Perhaps she's heard from reliable sources, although nothing official from Microsoft, that the Touch First Microsoft Office is heading to Android before Windows 8.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, potentially the Windows 8 Metro modern versions delayed now till 2015, possibly coinciding with Windows Threshold.
No, that surprised me. It's that length of time the delay, but it doesn't surprise me. Android's first.
Yeah, I think according to Mary's article, Mary Jo's article, they were looking to get Office out by late 2014. Now it's going to be spring 2015. Obviously, these are just rumours, but her sources are normally pretty reliable. But it's definitely a very different Microsoft these days.
Yeah, definitely. Which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing.
No, definitely not. I mean, I hang on many a time about how Microsoft, is on the brink of becoming, the also ran. So they need to reinvent themselves, and that's clearly what they're doing.
If they've got the best, I think the strategy works. If they've got the best Office application suite for Android and for iOS, then it keeps them relevant. Even if there's people who don't use a Windows device, it keeps Microsoft relevant, and even people with the least tech savvy occasionally get Office documents, and having that the ability, even if there's a free viewer type like there is for the iPad, then I think that is something that everyone's going to install, or most people install, and it keeps Microsoft on those relevant on those platforms.
Yeah, Mary Jo's included a tweet. So I think it was last week. Satya did a series of 7 tweets to explain what he meant when he was on. It wasn't the All Things D; it's a replacement for All Things D. But he basically in that mentioned a post PC. So he did these 7 tweets to explain what he meant. And 3 of 7 is that Microsoft's a people-centered apps power experiences across devices. We will not be bound to one app on one device in one place.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. No, definitely.
I think
I'm just sitting here reading the Swift development language.
You've got 2 more minutes, and then you have to explain it to us.
Okay.
So while Gary reads that, then I'll just wrap up on the Apple stuff. So overall, iOS 8, very polished. Some nice improvements like your recent contact list when you use task switch and things like that. So very nice polished OS, and I'm sure it'll work very well on my iPad Mini and on iPhones. I think it's iPhone 4S and up, and iPad 2 and up as well. So I think it goes across quite a wide range of devices.
Was there any mention of the iPod?
Yeah, 5th gen.
Right. Okay. That kid should be all right then.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear any time frames.
Later this year, I think. Spring. Autumn,
right, okay.
Sorry, I think. Yeah. Or later summer.
Yeah.
And
just to see what.
And for OS X, you can actually sign up, I think, for the preview program that's coming later.
Right. Yeah, and we'll be interested to see the timings, because I think we still don't really know a date when Windows Phone 8.1 is going to get properly released.
No.
And I'm sure there must be a new version of Android along somewhere this year.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Actually, I know we're conscious of the time, so just Windows Phone 8.1 update. Did you get that yesterday?
Yes, it is. Yeah, no idea what's in there.
No, I can't tell any difference, but we've got that on there.
I was really impressed with the last update. How that changed my battery life. I was playing Greece last week, and I was actually struggling to get any charging points or anywhere to charge from. And I actually managed to run the 920 for 3 days without a charge. Admittedly not on mobile, but using Wi-Fi all the time. I was really impressed with that. So I've just read the Swift manual. It's basically as C# is to C, Swift is to Objective-C.
Okay, that's a good summary.
So it's just to make it's a bit higher level. Takes away some of the clunkiness of Objective-C, but keeps some of the good bits actually. So it looks like a nice language. What I can just read. So
you can have an app done by next week to let us know what it was like.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, what else? My Movies 5. We talked about the pre-release. That the final version is now available.
Yeah, no additional new features in that final release, as far as I can see. But yeah, really
combined server client product. I've actually been getting into My Movies quite a bit recently. I've got that set up now and doing a lot of streaming and converting. It works so well. I'm pretty pleased with that. Media Portal 1.8 pre-release. A new media browser server that looked pretty good. A lot of the improvements on DLNA and TV streaming optimization, I think that was pretty good. Oh, and DVB Link 5, we talked about the beta, but now the final version of that's out as well.
That looks. I mean, we've spoken about that, and I think a few years back we would have been really excited about DVB Link 5 because it's got such great features in it. But unfortunately, I think a lot less of us are using it than we used to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I've still got my 4 set up, but I tend not to use it that much at the moment.
I did use my DVB Link stream out when I was travelling recently, so I still use it. And 5 has got some fabulous features, especially the multi. Catching the transport stream. Transponder, splitting the transponder into multi-tuners. I'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
One thing I just wanted to quickly bring up from my experiences of travelling in Europe the last few weeks, because I've been going around quite a few places. I was really interested in Greece because virtually every second person was carrying a 520, a Lumia 520.
It has been done well from that, hasn't it?
Yeah, and if you certainly looked at the local population, they were virtually all on Nokias. And what I found quite funny, they were talking about a wave of crime that happened the previous year, where loads of phones had been stolen, and they'd all been iPhones. And basically, they said, they'd gone to the local police chief, and every time he reported one, he'd say, "Oh yeah, another tourist," because none of the locals have iPhones.
Yeah.
I think because I was at a presentation at my son's school, and there was another father there filming his son or daughter, and he'd got a Nokia, Lumia device, and it does start to make you think, that go back 12 months, even 18 months, you just would never have seen someone else with a Windows phone. So, we're out there.
Yeah, again, I mean, it was very interesting being certainly on Coswell. I was doing this event. You didn't go half an hour without meeting someone with a Windows phone. It was so, and it wasn't just the geeks and the early adopters. Everybody had them.
And it's probably the opposite experience that I had in the States, where everybody had iPhones or Android.
Yep. Yeah.
It's very different in the States to Europe.
Yep.
And it's good technology in there as well. When I was at Disney Park, they've got this RFID wristband thing. It's very, very impressive.
I wonder if they've got my security on that.
Yeah. So I think that was the main things I wanted to cover tonight. Oh yeah, we did mention my broadband is coming. So my 40 meg is coming 17th of June. So we should have HD video streaming by then.
I won't be talking to you then.
No, well, you won't. You won't be able to keep up with me, Gary. Although,
talk faster.
Yeah. We can use more bits now, Gary.
Yeah, so we can talk faster and use more bits in the game.
But my kids are more excited about that than anything else, I think. They just they're bothered about streaming video at the same time. They know they're banned off the internet while we're recording, so they're very happy with that. Right. Okay. So I think that's everything we had time for this week. So it was good to be back, and I'll include a link for everything we talked about in the show notes. There's a few extra bits that we didn't get a chance, so I'll include a link for that, and some stuff I posted while I was away about how to use Google Play Music on Windows devices, which got a lot of interest. So there's obviously a lot of people doing that. So that was probably one of the highest rated posts we've had for a while. So obviously a lot of people are trying to do that. And some video streaming stuff I did as well, so I'll include links for those in the show notes. Right, just a reminder of your Twitter addresses, Gary.
I'm at Gary WMA. You can also find me on convenienceComputing.com, fascinatingtech.com, and you can even find me on the Microsoft site this week, because they published one of my articles on Microsoft Developer.
Oh, send us a link. Right. I'll include that.
Yep.
And Jess, where are we finding you?
I'm at Database Jace on Twitter.
Excellent, great stuff. So we should be probably, yes, we will be back next week, 8 o'clock UK time, Tuesday evening, or on the podcast on YouTube. So thanks to everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Cheers, bye-bye.